That way we have this going. I want to welcome everyone here today. I'm really, really happy to have Alex Freund here. Even more so because of, as of last night, we weren't sure, Alex, what was, Alex, you're like a real trooper today. You came here today and, you know, kind of plowing through. So thank you very much for attending today.
In fact, I can share a little bit, once few more people come on, I will share something, a little, probably interesting story that's relevant to what you just mentioned, because not because of my story, but there is something to learn from it. And I see that here is my buddy Al from Atlanta, and my buddy Dietmar from Maryland, and my buddy Juliet from Central New Jersey. Yeah, these are my buddies.
Yes, we're all. So why don't you start,
Should I start?
You might as well start now because it's being recorded anyway.
Yeah, okay, very well, very well. So what I wanted to say, and again, there is something to be learned from. Twice a year I go to see my doctor. Typically a routine, he always says, Alex, it's always to work with you because you're so healthy. That's great. So last time, which was about 2 weeks ago, most of the cases when I go and see my doctor, we start chatting about all kinds of things, and then 20, 30 minutes, we deal with medical stuff. Last time I was there, he says, Alex, I would love to go out with you for lunch. But Alex, I can't go out with you for lunch because I work at lunch. Alex, are you available to go for breakfast? And I said, are you kidding me? I am honored. I'm very, very honored. So yesterday was the day that we were supposed to meet for breakfast. And I was there at 9:45 when the time was, and I'm waiting and he never showed up. He did not put it in his calendar. Well, what happened yesterday, as you know, Ken, I developed an extreme, and I mean extreme, pain in my right leg. I called his office and I said, you know what, I'm in pain, I need, so he said, come in at 5 o'clock. But I also said, I don't know if you know the saying, if Muhammad doesn't come to the mountain comes to Muhammad. So eventually I saw him. But here is the point. When we set up initially our get-together for breakfast, I said, Dr. So-and-so, and I wrote to him that I'm confirming that I'm coming and so forth. And he immediately replied, and he said, Alex, I cannot go out to have breakfast with you if you call me Dr. So-and-so. You need to call me Dan. And then I said, wow, this is difficult for me to call you Dan. For 15 years, I called you Dr. So-and-so. And then I was thinking, what is a learning lesson from here? We are in this habit. We are so trained to do what we have been doing in the past that is very difficult for us to change. And why am I telling this long story? Because this is what's happening when you go for an interview. You perpetuate your habits that you did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and 15 years ago. So there is something to learn. And I was thinking, how about if you tell people, look, I know you guys know how to count from 1 to 10, but let's do this. Instead of 2, we will interchange 2 with 6. So you don't say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You say 1, 6, 3, 4, 5, 2, and you go for that. Can you do that? People will say, no, I'm used to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about is, when you prepare for an interview, you need to almost abandon past practices, and you need to start learning new practices.
Well, I think one of the things that we talk a lot about, and you and I talk about a lot, is the whole idea of the hiring process, and especially now. And I'd be curious to know, what do you think is different now versus the past in the hiring process? I mean, there's so many things going on, but are there any specific things you can focus on?
Uh, can I, if you ask me to answer in one word is everything. But no, you
Okay,
want me to say a little more. There are
sure.
so many changes, so many things that are happening, and they have been accelerated by the pandemic. For example, 84% of employers plan for remote work. 84%. They plan for remote work. Also, I read an article that says that 35% of people that were asked, if you're asked to come to the office, what's happening? They said, I'm quitting.
Hmm.
That hasn't happened in the past. The gig economy is growing like crazy. I can tell you in the past, I mean, all those people that are more advanced in age, in the past, you got a job and you expected to be there for many, many years. Well, this doesn't happen anymore. Right now, I can tell you this. I looked it up. The median tenure of people is 4.1 years. Median. Again, that's a median. Okay, but you need to get a little closer and see where are these numbers coming from. So I found out that people between 55 to 64, 9.8%, no, 9.8 years is their tenure. Now, if you look at younger people, 25 to 34, it's 2.8. So what can we learn from this? That changes are a part of life. I want to tell you, I remember many, many years ago, I changed jobs rather frequently, and I remember talking to my mother. And my mother then said, Alex, is there anything wrong with you? Alex, you know your dad worked 17 years for the same company. Why do you change companies so often? She didn't understand that now people it's very, very common to change companies. Either they don't like you or you like them, but you have options, and that's good.
So I guess what I find very challenging about that is that there's so many different things that job seekers are up against, especially now that people have lost their jobs, right away, and they're kind of out there. Is there one specific thing that you could suggest people do to really improve so they can get themselves in front of people?
Well, we know that, Ken, we know that. I mean, networking is not something you do only when you need a job. But you see, I talked to one of my clients yesterday, and I said, so how do you network? Well, I am on LinkedIn. I said, oh, great. How often? Well, occasionally. Okay, so good. That's very good. LinkedIn is only one channel. What else are you doing? Alex, what am I supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to get busy the whole time. LinkedIn is good, but you are supposed to, for example, if you see an article, send it to people, email or LinkedIn. Seek opportunities to meet in person. Yes, people started meeting in person. The value you can get from connecting with a person in person versus online is day and night. Online, the relationship is very shallow. When you meet somebody in person, perhaps if you consume a cup of coffee together, there is a bond there, there is a relationship. A relationship is what you need. So it's not one thing that you need to do. You need to 360 degrees apply. For example, you have a holiday, you meet cousins. I bet anything, if I go to your cousin, Ken, I'm picking on you today, and I said, by the way, do you know what Ken is doing? Most likely the cousin will not be able to provide me a good answer. Because you don't go to your cousin every time you meet and say, let me tell you what I do. This is what I do. But actually, your cousin wants your best. You need to educate them so that if they meet other people, and they do. If the opportunity is there, they can say, oh, by the way, coincidentally, my cousin Ken, he is very good at LinkedIn. He helps people on LinkedIn all the time. Why don't I give you his contact information? So use your connections to your advantage all the time, but you need to do the legwork. Don't assume they know about you. Tell them, educate them.
So I saw someone had their hand raised. I don't know if they still wanted to add anything. Now, we want this to be an open conversation and not just, Alex and I can chat all day, of course, but if you have any questions, you want to raise your hand,
Kenneth,
definitely go for it.
that
Go ahead.
was me. Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Julia.
That was me, Juliet. And I wanted to say a couple of things. So Alex, thank you so much for the statistics that you provided about going back to work or work remote, or the age of people that are, with their tenure. One thing I've noticed, I think that you quoted a statistic that it said that, I don't know, 80% of the businesses I think hire still remotely. I think that's what you said. I'm not sure. What I see actually is a lot of people expecting for people to go back to work. I see parking lots full. I just got my hair done today and the parking lot was full at the train station.
What are you doing?
Whereas 6 months ago, it was empty. Sorry, where did I what?
No, I muted someone. Go ahead.
Okay. The people that I talk to, as far as openings and roles, they want people in the office. They may let you work remote 1 or 2 days, but they really want people back. And I see a trend. So I don't know if the statistics was something very recent or it was maybe a year ago or 6 months ago. But I definitely see people wanting people to be back in the office.
My answer to that. I think long range, long term, eventually people will start gravitating back to work, but it will be kind of polarized. The younger generation, you know what I hear? They want to go back to work. You know why? They want to meet people. They need to feel wanted. They need to feel a part of the group. The older people or the more experienced people, they don't have this need to socialize in the office. So yes, the younger people will be the first one to start coming back and the older people don't. Now, there is another financial consideration. Real estate is very, very expensive. And my daughter-in-law happens to work in New York City. And she told me that her company is paying $500,000 a year for rent. That's a lot of money. So now they modified the offices, and she was told she no longer has to come to the office because they are subleasing or doing something. Real estate is very, very expensive. I can tell you that for a period of time, my title was Director of Facilities, and I was the one that I was paying rent. And let me tell you, it's very expensive, especially if nobody's using it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's right on. I guess it also depends on function. It depends on size of company. New York is absolutely outrageous in terms of real estate. So companies have moved headquarters, for example. Pfizer, where I used to be, they moved their headquarters from 42nd Street down to somewhere South Street Seaport area, I think. I'm not really sure exactly the address. But yeah, I mean, I think real estate is a big issue, and they found that obviously we can work remotely efficiently. So we don't always have to be in the office. But I definitely agree with your assessment, Alex. Thank you.
I mean, I think also there's something to be said for being in the office and having those conversations. It's not the same thing to, be at home all the time. And that's a balance a lot of hiring managers actually have to kind of think about, because there's a challenge to working with teams that are hybrid and people that are just working remotely and people in the office. And I think those skills are things that a lot of managers are still struggling with. And they may not even know exactly how to handle it, because if the pandemic told us anything, it's that you can do a lot of your work from home, and you save time and you save, money. Did you want to say something, Andre?
And something.
Andre, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah. I worked a long time ago in the field of global software engineering, which is basically a fancy way of saying that we had developers spread around the country or around the globe. At one point, I was working on a project based in Princeton with people in India and Germany. And I had colleagues who were doing research in that field, the global software engineering. We found that it was more effective to have this kind of paradigm if we spent 2 weeks with the teams face to face first. And I had a gig that lasted 1.5 years, where I was on site every other week, and after 2 months of this, they said, it's getting a bit expensive to bring you back and forth. Would you mind working from home? I said, no problem. And I went down from time to time, and that worked out very well.
If you're in a large organization in a large building in, let's say, Manhattan, and you're on the 20th floor, you might as well be in Cleveland as far as the guy on the 43rd floor is concerned, because you're in another world. If the company's already working with virtual tools inside of a box, they're all in a building, but they're all working using virtual tools. They don't leave their desk anymore, except when they want to go socialize. This is opening doors and making changes happen in the way people behave and work. And it's going to play out, as time goes on. One thing that goes against it is, as somebody said, the cost of real estate. I'm waiting to see the first announcement where somebody takes and redoes an office tower and turns it back into a village that's a corporate, a company town per se, where everybody lives in the building, works in the building, there's room, there's real estate. You can actually live there, work there, or not. Just waiting to see that happens, because as real estate cost is expensive, you can't leave it empty.
Charlie, here is what I see. I want some input from others. I think managers are not doing a terrific job in managing people remotely. All the years, managers were trained to come to the office and manage people, sit there, have them. Now, they don't know. They are not very effective in managing people that are not visible in the office. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, my wife and I had a trip to China. And so it was a guided tour, and we go to a restaurant. I don't see a knife and a fork. I don't know. I admit to you, with embarrassment, I don't know how to use chopsticks. So I always ask for a knife and a fork. This is exactly what happened to managers now. They are told, excuse me, no more knife, no more forks, chopsticks. You need to work with people differently, not the way you used to do it for the last 10 years. And they don't know how to do it. They need to take some education opportunities to learn how to be effective managing a team that actually they're not coming to the office. I recently read an article that people are bitterly complaining of the ineffectiveness of their Zoom meetings. Well, let me tell you, many years ago, I worked for Honeywell, and they had a very good culture how to conduct meeting. They taught us how to be effective, what's permissible and what's not permissible. We had a timekeeper, we had an agenda. You had to stay on agenda. If you had something that's a little off the agenda, we call it, let's put it on the parking lot, we'll talk offline. The meetings were very regimented. When they say the meeting is from 2 to 3, guess what? At 3:01, people were no longer in the conference room. It was effective. It worked. I don't think it's happening now.
What did you want to say, Tara?
I was just gonna say, I've worked remotely on and off for almost 20 years, mostly on remotely. And it's been very effective. I work in software. I'm a technical writer. I've worked with worldwide teams. And especially my last company, they really had it down. It was mostly remote folks. They did a lot of team building to make sure we knew each other. We did get together. They tried to do it, a couple of times a year, have us all out to San Francisco. My previous company, I had literally never met most of the people in person, but we still built great rapport. So it can work. I think maybe a lot of these companies that are newer to it may not be as effective, but I just wanted to like throw my 2 cents in and say that it is possible for it to work really well, because I'm at the point in my career where I will only work remotely because I'm so used to it, and it works well for me.
This is somewhat dependent on what the product is.
So I think, go ahead. I think one of the questions that comes up a lot now, and is the idea that when you're doing your interviewing, Alex, it used to be you go into the office and you do the interviewing, and now everything is being done in different stages. To some extent, it's virtual, might be a phone screen. Are there any other types of interviews? I know you talk a lot about the bots. The bot will see you now and all that. Is there any, what exactly does that mean?
I can't talk about others, but the bot is an abbreviation of robot. Many companies are applying this more and more. Why? Because of necessity. They have no choice. Applying for a job today is very, very easy. And a company like Johnson & Johnson gets about 250 applicants a day. There is no woman called Mary or Jane sitting in the personnel office, as it used to be, reading your application. Everything is automated. And so what's happening, as you know, there is something called ATS, Applicant Tracking System, that's basically sifting out those applicants that don't qualify. Now they introduced another layer. It's called AVI. AVI stands for Asynchronous Video Interview. Excuse me. Asynchronous video interview, this is what I'm talking about. It's interviewing with the bot. You apply for the company. Instantly, you get an email back. Thank you very much for applying. Here is a process. We will send you a link. You will need to answer to some interview questions. You have 3 minutes to prepare and 3 minutes to answer. At the end of the interview process, push a button. It goes to a team. The team is going to be evaluated. Also, artificial intelligence is a part of the evaluation. But Ken, you talk about types of interviews. Oh my God, I can go on and on and on. Well, you know the traditional interview, what we used to know. How about panel interview? Panel interview means you are there and there are five people the other side of the screen. Now, there is something called group interview. Group interview is the opposite of a panel interview. There is one interviewer and there are 5 candidates, and the interview is managing and getting out of the interaction between the 5 candidates what he wants, and that's how they make decisions. Now, you know about phone interview. By the way, 10 days ago or less, I had an opportunity to have lunch with a 10-year NYU professor. And I said, by the way, how are you guys doing interviews? Oh, here is a process. First of all, every interview starts with a telephone because they don't want us to be able to see, the color of the skin or whatever of the person. And by the way, he said, we have so many very scripted questions. We are not allowed to deviate at all. There are 5 people on the team listening in. Every person they have a scorecard and they have to write down what they think. At the end of the interview, we get together and we decide who do we really want to invite. The next stage is a Zoom meeting. and they do again an evaluation. If everything goes well, perhaps 2 or 3 people will be invited in person, and that's how it goes. So my question was, okay, do you find this regimented process effective? You know what his answer is? Not really. Now, so that's a phone interview. A video interview we talked about. There is something called stress interview. It's not very often, but in some organization, it's designed to see how do you perform under stress. There is something called case interview. Typically in scientific companies, they set up a case, they allow you to read it, and they said you have 20 minutes to discuss, and while you discuss it, we have questions to ask you. Another is called a behavioral-based question. Give me a time when, what has been your biggest, or whatever. It's behavioral question. There is something called informational interview. You know about that. We always tell people, have an information interview. An information interview does not have a purpose of getting a job. You want to get to know the company. Now, you know about mock interviews. That's what I do every day. There is something called serial interview. The serial interview is you go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, like 6 people. I call it, I always say when my clients tell me they have serial interview, I said, wait a second. In America, there is a law that doesn't allow you to torture. This is torture. Half an hour with 8 people, this is torture. Yes, it's very difficult.
So first of all, for everyone on the call, this is being recorded, so if you miss any of it, we'll definitely have it later on. I actually had what I call a good cop, bad cop interview once. I went to a place and I had a great interview, and the last person there tried to get me all riled up. And she asked all these questions, and the other people there were like rolling their eyes, and I found out later on that she was brought in to kind of test me to see how I'd react when there was someone there that didn't agree. And that person actually became my manager later on. And we had such a wonderful relationship. But the ironic thing about it was I left that interview thinking, oh my God, did I totally bomb it? And the truth was, I did exactly what they expected to do. And I just hate the fact that you really don't always know what you're up against. I think now with the ChatGPT, where you can actually ask these questions, there are some recruiters I know, including Hannah Morgan, that actually have tested the process of having people ask questions and putting it in the chat and seeing what the responses are. So you can almost get a sense, like the old tell me about yourself. You know, you can put that in there and you can learn what to do. It's just one bot after another. It gets so frustrating. And I think it's even harder when you have an interview to even demonstrate some of the soft skills when you're under pressure and you're not even talking to a person and you're not really sure what to do. What do you think is most important? I think it's important to listen as much as anything else and smile and be engaging. What do you think?
I think that, okay, we can talk for 3 hours only on this question. Here is what I see. People do not know how to prepare for an interview. Ken, I will admit to you, and you may agree or disagree, how 30 years ago, I was invited for an interview. You know how I prepared? I pulled out my last resume and I was reading the resume and I said, if they ask me this, I will answer this. And if they ask me this, I will answer that. 15 minutes later, I said, I'm prepared for the interview. I don't want to use bad words, especially about me. I was stupid to the max. This is not interview preparation. Let me tell you what interview preparation is. You need to really learn a lot about them. Remember one thing, the interview is not about you. The interview is about their problem. You need to learn a lot about their history. You want to show that you did your homework, and that will be the branding and the differentiator between you and the other candidates. So you need to learn a little bit about their history. So you speak intelligently. You need to understand who are the key people in their organization. You need to know the name of CEO or possibly the COO and several high level executives that they use their name at every lunch and so forth. You need to know, for example, what is their value in the marketplace. Is this a $100,000 company or $100 million company or $2 billion company? Most important, you want to learn about the culture. I always say to people, you don't need a job, you need a good job. What's the difference? The difference is day and night. Because you're hungry, you take a job because they offer it to you. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, Alex, I'm not so sure if this is what I wanted. 2 months later, Alex, can you help me again? Because I'm out of a job. They were so hungry, they were so blindfolded when they took this job. So yes, you need to learn about the culture. You also want to be knowledgeable about who are the competitors. You want to show them that you're not the little guy that knows only, what's happening in the accounting office. You are knowledgeable, you know who are they competing against. You need to be very clear on what their product is and what are the services they provide. I mean, you need to talk a lot about that. That will be very, very influential. You may want to read a little bit, what is the direction, where is a company going? What's their future plan? Again, you need to do a lot of homework. And lastly, I would say, you need to learn a lot about the interviewer. Oh, you went to Cornell too? Guess what? I did that too. Oh, you worked at ABC company? My cousin works for ABC, because you want to bond with them. You want to show them that if you are hired, you blend in very, very nicely. Now, perhaps we can talk about later about hard skills and soft skills, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if other people have any thoughts or comments or would want to know based on experience what they could do. I think one of the issues we talk a lot about is ghosting, and it works both ways. I think, it's easier to move on at times, but I think what most people don't realize is that the hiring, go ahead. I think what most people don't realize at times is the recruiters are caught in the middle between getting feedback and not getting feedback. And sometimes you need to understand that sometimes no one knows the real reason why. And I think until we get hiring managers as part of this discussion, I think it becomes just a conversation that we're going to have again and again and again. Janine wanted to know suggestions for how to do all the research for a company. She wanted to know if it would be done on Google, or how else would you suggest doing some of that research?
The answer is yes. Everything that's available. It's not an easy process. I would say it takes hours of answering to those criteria that I outlined: history, people, value, culture, these sort of things. You see, if you plan to work for a public company, the information is ample. If you plan to work for a small private company, you'll have a very, very difficult time because they are not obligated to put out anything. So yes, that's what it is.
I mean, I would also say use LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn to search for people that are at the company, because you never know who knows it.
That's my next sentence, that, connect with people inside the company. If you're polite, if you're nice, if you're professional, you know what? People love to share. You're not asking for money, you're asking for information. People love to share. If you contact somebody inside the organization and you say, may I take 10 minutes of your time? Ken Lang is a good friend of mine. He suggested I call you. Would you be available at your convenience? Promise 10 minutes, no longer. Okay? So people will engage with you. You're nice, you're professional. I like Ken Lang. He asked that I talk to you. Sure. Absolutely. It's a lot of hard work, and people don't feel comfortable doing the heavy lifting. If you're not willing to do it, I don't know how I can help you. I told you how to do it.
So what do you have to add, Sandra?
So you mentioned about searching for people at the company and talking with them. So I'm hitting a roadblocks for the companies that I've applied for. They're coming up LinkedIn members. Could you explain that, please?
Oh.
Okay, let me help you a little bit. I
Mm.
have a very, very, very large number of first level connections.
Okay,
You know why?
why?
I don't need a job for the rest of my life. So I'm not looking for a job, thank God. But I'm here to help others. Here is what I tell. Sandy, are we connected on LinkedIn first level?
I don't think so.
Okay. Please ask me to connect. I will accept you immediately now. The moment you're connected with me first level, you have access to 30,000 first level connections. So let's say you want to talk to a guy called Al Smith. Al Smith is a great guy. He's in Atlanta. He's a coach. He wrote 2 books and so forth. And you want to find out from him detailed information. So here is what you do. You write to me an email, and here's my sense of humor. I always say this. Don't say, hi, Alex. Say, dear Alex. If you say, dear Alex, I'm always nicer to people. So you say, dear Alex, I noticed that you are connected to an individual called Al Smith in Atlanta. He's a coach. I would like to talk with him a little bit because I intend to move to Atlanta area. I'm sure he can help. Alex, can you please help me? What do I do with that? I immediately look up Al Smith's email address because he is my first level connection. And I take your email and said, dear Al, my friend Sandy wants to ask you a question. She intends to move to Atlanta. Al, could you do me a personal favor and help her? What do you think that Al Smith will do? No, Alex, I'm not going to help you.
So
Sure,
let-
Alex. It's my
Al's on the call. Al, what would you do, Al?
I'd say, I don't want to talk to her.
I know you. I know you. I picked on the wrong guy. I knew that.
No, but
I don't
seriously,
think he would say that.
no, of course I wouldn't. But anytime you connect with somebody, their first level connections become your second level connections. Their second level connections become your third level connections, and your network will grow exponentially, and you won't get that LinkedIn member. I'm guessing, just a guess, that you have fewer than 500 connections.
I do.
This is
You're
Charlie.
right, I
It's
do.
me.
Hey.
I'll put myself in the chat.
Is
Hey,
that
Ken.
the issue?
Yeah, your network's too small.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably.
And there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can dramatically add connections. You can reach out to open quote, open networker, all lowercase, end quote. Those people will generally connect with you. Many of them are collectors. I would suggest reaching out to everybody on this call. I'm sure most of us are super connectors. People that are in your groups, your LinkedIn groups, you might see a comment or a posting by somebody. You can comment on it, then reach out to those people. And you really do want to be active in your LinkedIn groups, because when a recruiter has a difficult time finding somebody for a position, lots of times they'll become a member of a group and see who the most active people are. Reach out to them.
Interesting. Thank you.
This is Charlie. I
Yes,
have
Charlie.
stumbled across a couple of companies out there. When you start reading the LinkedIn profiles of all their employees, you realize there's a control freak somewhere inside the company that's created all of those. And that's a cultural statement. Okay, I'm not sure where you go with that or what it really means. But companies like that do exist, and I have a feeling they have barriers and walls that they're maintaining for whatever their reason. So that type of company might be difficult to penetrate.
But then at the same time, you don't know who we all know. And it doesn't hurt to connect. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
everyone talks about the second and third level. Second level connections are sometimes even more valuable than the first connection, because you don't know who they know on top of that. And I think
Mm.
that is such an important thing. I mean, I know a lot of you on this call from going to different events and things, but you don't know who else I'm connected to beneath that.
Right.
And that's always a great thing to do. Even when you do searches on LinkedIn, when you do searches on LinkedIn, the second connections show up before the first connections. When you do searches, which is both good and bad. But Sandra, between Alex and Brenda and Al and all that, I mean, the sky's the limit. Cindy, did
Yes.
you want to add some? I'm sorry, did you want to add something, Cindy?
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting myself. So I'm thinking, I usually don't go to these. I used to go and they weren't that helpful to career fairs, but there's a company that I'm interested in, and the woman actually reached out to me, but she's not attending the career fair. What do you guys think about those?
Did I hear that you tried to connect with a person without any response? Is this what
No,
you
no,
said?
no, it's a career fair where a bunch of companies are gonna be at. And
Okay.
usually when I've been to them before, they weren't helpful, but this time there's a company that I'm interested in working at. And actually the recruiter reached out to me, but
Okay.
you know,
Here
we
is
didn't have,
here is my reply.
okay,
If you don't buy a lottery ticket, don't expect to win. So if you don't go to the career fair, then you have zero chances to get in there. You know, if you have time, go there. I know some people that have gotten relationship and whatever, possibly even jobs by going to career fair. You know why they are at the career fair? Companies go because they're recruiting. It's not that they have nothing else to do. They want to recruit. It's another venue for them to get resumes, and it's another venue for job seekers to mingle and talk to those companies. And there is another powerful thing there. There are other people like you that they're there for the same purpose.
Exactly,
right,
exactly.
right. Oh, and I want to apologize for not putting my video on. I have too many tabs open, so my Zoom is being kind of wacky.
No worries. Alex brings up a good point. All the people that are in transition with you, you don't know who they know. And it's such a missed opportunity. You want to connect with them too, because you just don't know. I mean,
You mean the other job seekers who are there?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not?
All right, I'll bring some business cards, although they have
Mhm.
my wine business website on it, but
But you don't know who knows who. You know, you may go back and you look them up on LinkedIn and like, oh my God, they know someone at the company I wanted to be at. And you have built that relationship. I think that's a missed opportunity most people don't realize.
right, yeah, I never thought about connecting with, I mean, I do that on the calls, but
Yeah.
that's true.
You used, excuse me, you used the term business card. What is this something that people in the previous century used? What is it? Today, business cards are sitting in the drawer. Nobody's using it.
I know, but sometimes I've still gone to some in-person networking events and people still use them. So, you know, I made some.
Yeah, good for you.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
we talk a lot about the LinkedIn QR codes if you have your phone as a way to connect right away.
Oh, that's right. So maybe I could have saved some money. Oh, well.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it doesn't. Some people like the cards laying on the table. They like to shuffle the cards once in a while to keep themselves organized
And write notes on the back of them.
sometimes.
definitely.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the QR code. I forgot somebody did that to me one time. Said, here.
If you don't know somebody now, you don't know how they like to work and how they keep their heads organized. So have all the tools in your toolkit. Have everything.
Right.
Andre, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a somewhat different kind of problem. I'm what you might call an aging techie. I've worked in lots of different problem domains, and even though I teach software engineering at a pretty well-known place as an adjunct, I have a hard time convincing people that I can learn the new tools that are changing all the time. Recruiters are looking for an alphabet soup, or they want me to know this tool or that tool or the other tool. And I had a screening interview with Facebook, which was all about coding. And eventually I just gave it up as a bad job, and I'm glad I did for many other reasons. But how do I get past that? I have a lot to contribute at a high level. I've written a book in my field. I've won a prize in my field, and it's really hard to get through.
Would talking about architecture rather than language get you there? I don't know.
I don't know. It seems that a lot of these companies have their own processes.
Arthur,
And
did you have some-
running through a coding hoop seems to be part of it, even though I'm not being recruited for a coding-oriented position.
Andre, Andre, the whole, what have you done lately? Is there any way that you can have on your LinkedIn profile stuff that you're working on that shows that you're cutting edge or that you're up on things?
Mm-hmm. Right. I could list the courses that I'm teaching, which might give them some idea, actually, of what it is that I can do outside my pigeonholed domain.
I would also position
what are you
yourself
doing
as, I would position yourself as a mentor. You can mentor team members.
Yeah.
You can mentor others. You can take your skills in that way, because that whole collaboration thing is something which is really missing these days. Everyone is in their silos, I think. So that experience, I think, would also help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that. I've said to recruiters that I'm really interested in that. And then they go and look at my resume and said, oh, you don't have enough management experience. Sorry. Charlie, you're shaking your head.
It's survival is management experience in the first place. Okay, you may not be the leader of the pack and thumping your fist on the table, but if you survive in a team, you have management skills. And if you're in a collaborative environment, more is accomplished by 2 or 3 people having a tightly knit discussion than somebody laying out a business plan. Alex mentioned a meeting that Allied Signal, we both work for the same company, different place. And I can remember going through that stuff with the structured meeting, and one week, 2 of us looked at each other and said, let's stay after the meeting. We can solve this problem in a half an hour. And we sat there and wrote the engineering change orders and had them all signed and walked into the next meeting and threw them on the table. Boy, did we get a guy mad. Oh my God. A young wannabe manager.
No, I don't. And I have tangible evidence of collaboration. I filled up a passport with extra pages.
Mm-hmm.
But that becomes something you can tell people about, you know, how you manage things in the past, how you put out a fire and how you can put out their fires and all that stuff. I mean,
I've also chaired the steering committee of a major conference, built it from the ground up. It's like herding cats.
I like that one.
so you become a cat herder. That's your title now.
There you go. You might want to make a few business cards as a bit snarky and put a couple of descriptions like that on there,
Yeah.
and then flip it over for the real one. But be careful with that. That's not going to blow up in your face.
Yeah, my business cards are fairly conservative, actually, fairly orthodox.
Mm-hmm.
And upside down.
And upside down. But that's,
Yeah.
And
but
blank
even
on
if
the
you,
reverse
but
side.
even if you put your QR code on your link on the business card, that would show something that you're really up with technology, and you can do that. I mean, a little thing.
Oh,
like
that would take them to my website, right?
It can take, well, the QR code on LinkedIn will take them to LinkedIn profile, but you can create your own QR code to link it to your website, and a QR code, you know, where you want it to go. So
Mhm.
here's a QR code, and just a way it can link to your samples, to your website, whatever you want to do. Definitely, and it's another thing to do.
To your website, and on there you throw one that'll take you over to LinkedIn and wherever else you're, you
Yeah.
know, they can go down the rabbit hole of QR codes, and down the bottom of every rabbit hole, there you are.
Right. Okay, I'm writing all this down.
Well,
Any question, Ken?
well, one of the last things you asked about is why is the visual image so important when you're interviewing? You know, whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it on the screen.
Very
I don't know if-
important. The visual image is underrated by most. Why? Because they don't understand. Here is what I can say. As you know, I live in Princeton. I call it heaven. Why is it heaven? Because I could avail myself to some courses taught by Princeton professors. I took 2 courses from the same professor. The first course was about the human brain. I don't remember a lot from that course. It was well over 10 years, but one thing I do remember, and it's applicable what I do every day. Here is what the professor said. The human brain is not good remembering information that came to the brain through the ears. The human brain is very good remembering information that came to the brain through the eyes. And I said, wow, that's a good concept. And this is so true. This is so true. So one of the exercises I do with my clients when I am preparing them for interview, I tell them the following. Ken, could you please tell me 2 sentences, the most 3, a conversation you had with another human 2 days ago. But please tell me verbatim, what did that person tell you? Can you do that? So far, not one client of mine said, yes, I can. Yeah, all I'm saying, give me 2 sentences, no more, 2 sentences, verbatim about someone telling you something 2 days ago. I'm not asking unreasonable things. 100% of my clients says, I can't. Then I said, by the way, have you ever watched a James Bond movie? Most people say yes. And I said, you know, I don't know if you remember that movie. I don't remember the name, but he was sitting in a small helicopter. It was all plexiglass. He just opened the door, jumped out into a red Corvette, by the way, of course, that was waiting there. And needless to say, next to him, there was a gorgeous blonde lady, just happens to sit there. And 2 minutes later, they are on the lake and they are chased. So you and I can talk about James Bond movie. By the way, the last time I saw James Bond movie was well over 10 years ago. How come we can have a nice, friendly conversation about James Bond movie that it's way back? And if I ask you, can you please tell me 2 sentences, and you're not able to tell me? I said, that's exactly my point. So let's bring this knowledge into the interview. The interviewer is going to interview 3, 5, 7 people. It can easily take 5 weeks, easily, if not longer. At the end of the process, he will have or she will have 5 to 7 resumes on their desk. How are they going to make decision if they don't remember what you said? So what can we learn from this? You need to leave a visual image that's memorable. Now let's take this one step further. What do you need to do? First of all, dress appropriately. Next, smile. Your smile is going to be memorable. If you frown, it will be memorable, but not in a positive way. Don't become a sculpture with moving lips. By the way, that's one of my expressions. I work with people every day, and I mock interview with them, and their body is not moving an 1/8 of an inch. The only thing that is moving is their lips. Now, I will definitely remember those people, but not in a positive way. You have to kind of be real, be natural, be authentic. One of the statements, I say it all the time to people. Consider an interview akin to a YouTube video. It is not a CD. What's the difference between a CD and YouTube? The CD is music, it's terrific, but I can watch an orchestra with 80 people on my iPad, same music, identical. But that's 100% better. So you need to remain visually memorable in a positive way during the interview. Because if you don't, they will not even remember talking to you. It happened to me.
The importance of, you got to stop and think about the kind, going back a few thousand years. How did we live and what was important to us? If you're out there in the wilderness somewheres and you see something, it becomes instantly important to you because it's either food or it's planning on making you into food.
Now, next thing, one of the things that my clients find it extremely difficult, and you need to learn how to improve, is to maintain good visual connection with the person that you talk to. For example, of course, I'm talking to you guys. How do you feel if I'm talking to you and, as you can tell, I'm not paying attention to you? It's a very different feel vis-a-vis, when I'm looking at you now. Recently, I bought a prop that I'm showing my clients.
Mom, I told you after this call, I'm gonna call the.
That's interesting. We need to add interesting things in. So I want to show you guys something. I'm wearing glasses. You're aware of it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just make a little change here. Would you like me to talk to you wearing these glasses? Do you feel comfortable? People say, why not? Look, I told you I'm wearing glasses. What? I just changed glasses. Now, why you don't like this? Because I'm blocking, you cannot look me in the eye. To have a good conversation, you need to look at me. And this is one of the things I insist when I work with my clients. And I know I'm asking the impossible. When I talk to somebody and I say, Barbara, can you please tell me about yourself? The first thing that happens, people move their eye away from me, 98% of the time. Now, why is that happening? Because it's pressure. It's very difficult. You ask me a question and to maintain eye contact. Think about when you watch evening news on your television. I always ask this, how often the person reading or watching evening news, how often the person reading the evening news on your television is not looking at you? They always look at you, because if they're not able to look at the audience, which is the teleprompter, of course, they don't belong on national TV. So what I'm training and I'm prodding my clients is make an effort to keep looking at the other person. The moment you move your eye away, you don't maintain relationship. And many of my clients like to take notes during the interview. And I say, please don't take notes during the interview. Because you see, if I am taking a pen and you talk to me and I all of a sudden look down and I'm writing, we no longer talk to each other. We no longer communicate. Yeah, Barbara, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I have a neurodiversity where I actually can't picture things. So the visual memory is hard for me and I have to take notes, but I always ask up front, can I take notes? And if I have a laptop, I can type faster than people can talk. But if I have to write, I'll only glance down to find out where my pen is the next time I write. Like I don't lose much eye contact, but if I don't take notes, I'm not going to remember anything.
Barbara, here, two things I can give you. First of all, maintain eye contact with me. And you see, I don't see your fingers.
Right.
Maintain eye contact with me and you keep typing. That's one thing. The other thing is this, you must have a smartphone. Am I correct?
Correct.
Put it on your table and turn the recording on. Don't tell anyone, but you can do that. There's no reason why you cannot do that. You have an interview like this, you put your phone on the desk, turn on the recording. Everything we're discussed is picked up. You don't have to tell anyone you do that, but you can do it. Nobody will find out.
I would think you would have to tell them. That's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Why do you have to tell them? You don't publish this. You're not FBI.
Right.
for you, I have a deficiency, you know, I really need to take notes. I don't want to take notes while I'm talking to you, but you know, don't share it with anyone. But
Right.
if you have a phone that's recording, I will never know it.
Well, Alex, you and I could talk for another
Okay.
hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So I think we definitely have to have you back sooner rather than later, for sure. I want to thank you very much for
My pleasure.
attending today. I have saved the chat and I will put the chat. I'll share it, put it up on LinkedIn, and I'll send a link to the recording as well. So I want to thank you guys all very much for attending. We've got Brenda Miller coming next week. So looking forward to that. And any of you who are around on Friday, Brenda Miller's got her VIP call from 10 to 11. So have a great day, get to it, and thanks a lot for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
great week,
you.
everybody.